The Hollywood Reporter recently announced a Deathstroke and Bane team-up movie produced by DC Studios, and I think this is bad news for Deathstroke's character going forward. See, Slade Wilson, aka Deathstroke, has always been a fan favorite villain in DC Comics, but for some reason, he has only appeared on the big screen once. And by once, I mean an end credit scene in Joss Whedon's Justice League. Yeah, not the best showcase. But what I've noticed in the past decade is the fact that DC is really pushing Deathstroke as a Batman villain and maybe a Green Arrow villain rather than a Teen Titans villain. See, Deathstroke was and always will be a Teen Titans villain. I personally think that his character works best when he's going up against Robin and the other Teen Titans. For example, the Teen Titans animated series showcases their rivalry in an incredible way, and I was hoping Deathstroke would begin in the DCU as a Teen Titans villain. And with this news of him teaming up with a Batman villain, it seems like James Gunn is leaning more toward the idea of Deathstroke mainly being a Batman villain rather than a Teen Titans villain. Now, I could be wrong about this. This new movie could not even be set in the DCU. We could be getting this movie alongside the Mr. Freeze and Clayface movies. DC could just be pumping out random Batman villain movies like Sony does with the Spider-Man villains, but I hope that's not true because that would be terrible. So we're not even going to entertain that idea anymore. Now, another idea is this movie being a part of the Batman epic crime saga by Matt Reeves, but in my opinion, it's going to be a crime saga. And Bane, he can maybe fit into the crime saga, but Deathstroke, I don't think so. Like an assassin of his caliber, he would be nerfed so much in Matt Reeves' universe. Like if you ground Deathstroke, I don't think it'll be that good. Like he needs to be super deadly, like a killer, like doing all sorts of crazy things with like swords, and yeah, you can make Deathstroke really awesome, but if you limit his capabilities, then he could become boring very fast, especially if he's not having a rivalry with the Teen Titans. Now, another possibility is this movie could be set in James Gunn's DCU, and it could be set before Brave and the Bold, and then this could set up like Batman and Deathstroke facing off on the big screen. You know, what everybody was wanting with Ben Affleck's Batman, so we might finally get that, or it might be set afterwards. Either way though, it really seems like DC Studios is pushing Deathstroke in front of Batman immediately. And I don't think this is a good idea, but hey, James Gunn, he could save it by having Deathstroke hear about Batman in this movie, then try to hunt him down in Brave and the Bold, but then Deathstroke's mission changes to hunting Robin. Maybe Brave and the Bold will establish a rivalry between Deathstroke and Damian Wayne Robin, or maybe Nightwing will appear and a rivalry will already be established. This is an established universe after all, so this could be the case, but I also think this is a bad idea. Because imagine we just skip all the history between the Teen Titans and Deathstroke and jump straight to Deathstroke going after Batman and being a Batman villain. Like that would kind of suck. Now you could argue, hey, it's an established universe and maybe later on we'll get like a prequel series or a prequel animated series where the Teen Titans go after Deathstroke and you get all that history explained, but the problem here is making the Deathstroke and Batman rivalry the priority over the Deathstroke and Teen Titans rivalry, whereas I think that should be switched. They should be swapped. It should go Teen Titans versus Deathstroke, then Deathstroke versus Green Arrow, in my opinion, and then Deathstroke versus Batman like way later on, not at the very start. And yeah, the reason I put Green Arrow ahead of Batman in terms of that lineup is because the Batman versus Deathstroke stories over the years have not really been heavy hitters in my opinion. Both Batman versus Deathstroke and the Shadow War event were misses for me after reading them, whereas the Deathstroke Year 1 story involving Green Arrow was actually pretty interesting. Besides comics though, Arrow has established a strong rivalry between Deathstroke and Green Arrow, whereas Arkham Origins, the other Batman vs. Deathstroke media we got outside of comics, just made Deathstroke another villain hunting down the Dark Knight. And hey, don't get me wrong, that Deathstroke versus Batman fight in Arkham Origins, like that cinematic, and even the game, was pretty epic, like so awesome, but it doesn't make up for the fact that their dynamic is not as strong as, say, Deathstroke versus the Emerald Archer, or Deathstroke versus the Teen Titans. So yeah, I don't think connecting Deathstroke to Batman's world immediately would be a good idea. Now, another bad takeaway from this movie announcement is the fact that James Gunn's DC announcements are starting to feel a lot like the early days of the DCEU. Remember when the DCEU was just announcing a bunch of random projects with no clarification? Like, are the projects in the universe? Are they Elseworlds? Are they just random? Are they even going to be made? Yeah, a lot of those movies announced in the early days of the DCEU were not even made, or they were later changed drastically, and they turned out to be not what they originally intended to be. This caused a lot of DC fans to become confused, and the whole DC Cinematic Universe, the DCEU, it just crumbled. So yeah, I think James Gunn, he needs to choose wisely on what he announces and what he greenlights, and really clarify where these movies reside. Like, will they be a part of Matt Reeves' The Batman universe? Or will they be a part of the DCU? Those should be the only two options. There should be like random movie announcements, or hey, here's a whole another Elseworld universe. Because honestly, already having two separate universes could be a little confusing or a little disjointed, but I'm fine with it because hey, you got the main universe and the Elseworld. But once you start branching out too much, especially at the beginning of James Gunn's leadership, it just gets so confusing, especially when there's no clarification. Like, it's really hard to get excited for these movies where it's just announced and you don't know what universe they're a part of or what they really are. Like, guys, we didn't even get clarification on the dynamic that'll be presented between Bane and Deathstroke. And yeah, that gets to my next and really the big issue with this announcement. See, the biggest problem with this announcement is the fact that Bane and Deathstroke have never worked together. And it's not like this announcement told us what kind of dynamic they would have. Right now, I can't see their dynamic lasting a full movie, but hey, I might be wrong. James Gunn, he might break new ground with a dynamic between Bane and Deathstroke that I never thought of. We might get something totally new. So I will give him some credit. Like James Gunn, he be making some bold creative decisions, and this is one of them. So yeah, credit where credit is deserved. But yeah, let's think about this dynamic now. Both Bane and Slade Wilson are incredibly smart, and they do have different fighting styles. Deathstroke is a straight up killer and an assassin, whereas Bane is more of a brute. Also, will Bane be assisted by Trog, Zombie, and Angel? Actually, there's more problems regarding Bane with this announcement than Deathstroke, but I'll save those problems for the next video. But for now, tell me your thoughts on this announcement regarding Deathstroke. Is this good news for his character? Is this bad news? And I have a very interesting theory about this announcement that I'll share in this video right here, where we talk about Bane and how this announcement affects him as a character.